So let's talk about how actually to use the micropipettor. It's a great instrument, very convenient, but it is also probably the most finicky and easy to mess up thing that you're going to be doing in this lab. All right, so it's just like a regular pipettor, except that it has a spring-loaded mechanism and a very tunable chamber used to be able to pipette out down to the microliter or millionth of a liter. Now, there are different size micropipettors that can handle different volumes. As I mentioned before, this one, come into focus, there we go, is 100 to 1,000 microliters. You can see right now we want it at 500 microliters, so go ahead and spin that back to 500. There we go, boom. And you do want to make sure that this is precise. We're going to be introducing enough errors of our own. Just make sure that things are nice and exact. All right, so we have here our pipette tips. I'm going to tilt this down a little bit. We're going to be tilting back and forth, sorry. Okay, so first, of course, we want to make sure that our samples are ready to go. We've loosened the lids enough that we can get to them easily. It's not a bad idea to give them a little bit of a swirl now. We'll be swirling them again right before we draw out of them. Okay, now that we're ready to open you get your tips, you open it, you go in, you use the pipettor itself to attach the tip. Don't touch it with your fingers. Remember, this is sterile. We want to keep it sterile. For the same reason, we close it as soon as we're done with it. Now, we're ready to draw. Now, before I do, there are some things to understand about this, okay? We're dealing with very, very small volumes. Because we're dealing with small volumes, we have to worry about things like air bubbles and surface tension of the water and all of that. And so, we do not... We depress the plunger before we get into the sample so that we're not blowing air in there and having little air bubbles at the tip that can actually make a significant difference in the volume that we're drawing. Okay, so first thing you do is you depress the tip to the first stop. Remember, the first, not the second, the plunger, not the tip. Sorry, you depress the plunger to the first stop. You will feel resistance, but you'll still be able to push after. Okay, so there. Then you swirl your sample, and you go in. And you don't want to dive all the way to the bottom necessarily. You just need to have the tip in enough that you can draw out the volume, and you draw slowly. Now, again, to emphasize here, I am not going in and then pressing and then drawing, okay? With this size of micropipettor, it's not as big of a deal, but you can get down to single microliter pipettors, and that makes a big difference. So, this is the rule. You press down out of the sample. Then when you're in, you draw up the button, the plunger, and there you go. You have it. You put your lid back on. Now you're ready to dispense. When you dispense, this is when you push to the first stop, and you can see there's a little bit still in there, and a little bubble of it. Then you push to the second, and that expels all of the sample that's in there. So first to draw, second to dispense. All right? Once you've done that, and of course, you would leave it in the rack while you're doing it, so you don't have to worry about holding it while opening the lids. It's just harder for you to see that when it's all the way over there, trying to fit everything in frame. All right, once you're done with that, you want a new sterile tip when you are doing your dilution series. So to change the tip, we have this thing here. You just push that, and off it pops into the deadall, boom. And that is how you use a micropipettor. So again, cannot emphasize this too much. You push down to the first stop, submerge it in, well, have a tip on it, submerge it in the sample, draw up slowly. Then to dispense, you push down to the second, okay? And that's how you use it. Do not push it all the way down and draw up the sample that is overdrawing. Not only will you end up getting too much volume and mess up your measuring, it's also possible if you have a larger volume that it will actually get into the pipettor itself and contaminate it. Then we have to go and we have to clean it. That's a whole thing. That's actually why we are working at 500 microliters instead of a milliliter like we normally might, is so that we have a little bit of headspace there. Just don't overdraw. Simple. To draw, first stop. To dispense, second stop. Boom.